The following video is presented by Car Gurus. Search over 5 million listings to find the right car for you at cargurus.com. A special Car Gurus link from me, Ryan Holman, is in the description and as the pinned comment for this video. In the late 2000s, the Great Recession hit NASCAR hard. There was less corporate money for sponsorships and individuals were less willing to operate a team. As a result, teams and drivers began to start and park, where they would enter races with the intention of retiring early and collecting low-position prize money, while saving on expenses like potential damage, race use, tires, and even pit crews. Initially, around this time, this mostly occurred outside of the Cup Series. In 2009, this practice came to the Cup Series in a large amount. Starting and parking had been done before in the series, such as major teams having an extra entry to help make certain a championship contending driver did not finish too low to lose the title, or the need for field fillers. However, what made the 2009 Stern Park entries unique was that a lot of them were able to show competitiveness. This was not just some good qualifying results, but actual pace in races, which sometimes had great results. If there was a Stern Park year for NASCAR, 2009 was it.
In 1983, James Finch formed Phoenix Construction in Florida. That organization would sponsor cars in stock car oval racing. Finch would eventually start his own team in this discipline, Phoenix Racing. In 1989, the Phoenix team began to compete in larger divisions as they ran in both the ARCA Racing Series and NASCAR Sportsman Series. In each series, they ran Jeff Purvis as their driver. For their debut season in those leagues, Purvis did one race in each of them, finishing in 36th place due to an engine failure after 16 of 117 laps at the ARCA race at Talladega and 40th at the Sportsman Series race at Charlotte, due to the same issue with 21 of 200 laps completed. The team would increase in competitiveness in those series through 2008. In ARCA, Phoenix won 9 races in this time frame, all but one of them being with Purvis. This included Purvis winning the series race at Daytona in 1993 and 1996. Through 2008, in the Sportsman Series, Phoenix won 11 races. The team's first win was in 1996 at Richmond with Purvis, who also won at Michigan and finished 7th in the season standings. Phoenix's winningest Sportsman Series season would be in 2001, when Jimmy Spencer won a trio of races for the team. For that year, Spencer won both Richmond races and Dover. Phoenix debuted in the NASCAR Cup Series in 1990 at Dover, with Purvis finishing 33rd after crashing with 222 of 500 laps completed. Phoenix's success from ARCA in the Sportsman Series did not carry over to the Cup Series during their first stint there, which lasted through 1996. In that time, Phoenix entered 44 races and failed to qualify for 13 of them. During practice for the 1994 Daytona 500, Neil Bonnet was killed in a practice crash in his Phoenix entry. The team's best Cup Series finish from 1990 to 1996 would be Purvis finishing 12th at the 1996 Daytona 500. Finch returned his team to the Cup Series in 2001. Through 2008, they competed part-time. This time, Phoenix finished in the top 10 7 times, topped by a third-place finish at Daytona in 2002 with Jeff Bodine driving. The closest the team came to being full-time during this time grouping was 2004. That year, they entered 29 of 36 races with 9 different drivers during the course of the season. Phoenix's best finish of 2004 would be 7th at Richmond with Mike Wallace. In 2008, Phoenix competed full-time in the Sportsman Series. 3-time race winner Johnny Sauter started off the season with them, but he was released after 5 races, during which time he had a best finish of 13th at the Daytona season opener. 2-time 500 winner Sterling Marlin drove at Nashville and finished 3 laps down in 22nd place. Finally, 2002 NASCAR Truck Series champion Mike Bliss became the driver and completed the season. Bliss had started the season with Trail Motorsports and was 5th in the championship after 6 races. Driving for Finch, Bliss finished in the top 10 in 13 races, with a best finish of 2nd at Dover. He also finished 5th in the final standings. Additionally, the team had a second entry for Landon Castle at the 3 road course races. Castle had a best finish of 14th at Montreal, but won Rookie of the Year for a season where he also drove 16 races with Junior Motorsports and had 3 top 10 finishes with them. For the Cup Series, Phoenix entered 10 races in 2008. Marlin would be the driver in all of them. He joined the team in October 2007 and did 3 races with them that year, failing to qualify at Talladega, finishing 25th at Phoenix and 33rd at Homestead. The 2008 season would not be much better for the combination. They first failed to qualify at Daytona, the first time Marlin did that since 1982. Marlin would also fail to qualify at Richmond and Martinsville. Of the races they started, Marlin's best finish was 22nd place at Talladega, the best qualifying result for the team that year. 2009 would be a significant year for the Phoenix team. That year they would continue to compete full-time in the Sportsman Series with the intention of Bliss returning for all of the races, but Finch would have his team compete full-time in the Cup Series too. Phoenix announced that Marlin and Bliss would share the entry with Brad Keselowski, a Hendrick Motorsports development driver that had won with their affiliate team, the aforementioned junior team, the previous year in the Sportsman Series at Nashville and Bristol. Phoenix would continue to field the number 09 entry, which would be run as a Chevrolet Impala SS with support from Hendrick for Keselowski's races, while Bliss and Marlin would use the Dodge Charger. Mikasuki Gaming and Resorts, which had been sponsoring the team since 2002, would be Finch's sponsor for the full Sportsman Series season and appeared to be the sponsor for most of their Cup Series races. However, much like how Menards and Jim Beam had their logos on Robbie Gordon Motorsports' number 04 car in 2009, Mikasuki was not sponsoring the team for some races where they were the listed sponsor. As a result of this, Phoenix would operate as a start and park operation for those races. During the aforementioned 2004 Cup Series season, the team retired from 18 of the 26 races they started. While some of these retirements were due to legitimate issues, such as the driver crashing out, in other cases, Phoenix had their entry park early to collect low-position prize money. This was most evident when Joe Ruttman drove for Finch that season. Ruttman started 7 races during the season, but failed to finish higher than 41st at Dover. In terms of laps completed, that event was the furthest he got into a 2004 race. The 27 of 400 laps completed when he retired, with the stated reason being rear-end issues. Most infamously, at Rockingham, Ruttman was parked by NASCAR after just 1 lap, due to no pit crew being present in Phoenix's pit stall. For 2009, Keselowski would be Phoenix's first Cup Series driver. He attempted his first 500 after entering 3 Cup Series races in 2008 for Hendrick, qualifying for 2 and getting a best finish of 19th at Texas. Keselowski's speed was not amongst the 3 fastest of the drivers in entries without a guaranteed qualification. This was reserved for entries that were in the top 35 in owners' points for 2008, which would have gotten him and Phoenix into the 500 field. In order to qualify, they would have to be amongst the top 2 in their aforementioned entry group in the first qualifying race, where Keselowski started 18th of 28 drivers. There would be 9 other drivers he would be competing with to qualify. By the 4th lap, when the race had its first caution period when Kurt Busch spun, Keselowski was in 11th, but 3rd in the group of non-guaranteed starters. On lap 24, he had one last competitor to qualify when Mike Skinner had a fuel pressure issue and retired. While the race was under caution for Skinner's issue, another of the non-guaranteed starters, Bill Elliott, crashed and would then retire with a transmission problem. After making a pit stop with most other drivers, Keselowski was in 13th, but Tony Stewart, Scott Riggs, and Joe Nemechek were ahead of him of the non-guaranteed entries. Keselowski struggled to get into a position to qualify for the 500. In turn 3 with 14 laps remaining, he was nearly involved in a crash after Greg Biffle lost control in front of him. 3 laps later, the race had its 3rd caution period after Martin Truex Jr. spun. Keselowski and Phoenix would not make a pit stop during this time, making them just 1 of 4 entries to do this strategy. When the race restarted on lap 52, Keselowski was in 2nd behind Jamie McMurray.
Green flag once again. Now, right now, Brad Keselowski in that 09 car, Kirk Shelmerdine with 9 laps to go in the 27. That's the 2 cars running 2nd and 3rd that are in the transfer spot. Keselowski gets a great restart with McMurray in that 26.
Yeah, it's like I said, the best news for McMurray is that anybody stayed out. I don't know how long he's going to be able to hold on, though, because we've seen what 4 tires do to these cars. It picks them up a good half second.
Just lets them be able to maneuver those cars. You can move the car around, you can drive it. And there you see Jeff Gordon in the 24 bringing them up the back straightaway.
You don't have to play with the throttle when you got 4 tires. You just matter and hang on.
And Gordon through the middle with Almirola on the outside. And his wingman is Jimmy Johnson in the 48.
They worked their way past Shelmerdine. Now it's Keselowski right ahead. And McMurray on the point.
What you have to be careful of when you got 4 tires and people in front of you don't is that you don't run over them.
8 laps to go.
Keselowski just a sitting duck on the outside in that 09.
He's more worried about Tony
Here we go,
Stewart.
guys. Big wreck. Got a car off the track. Got one in the wall.
Casey Mears in the 07 spins.
Joey Logano is trying to get through. Michael's there in the 55. Waltrip.
Get rolling there. Come on.
And
okay.
another one gets
20
the wall in the backstretch. That might have been Keselowski. Oh, there goes David Reagan off the track.
As Keselowski dropped back, a multi-car crash caused the race to go under caution again. At this point, Keselowski was in 4th position and still the highest-ranked driver without a guaranteed qualification.
Green flag with 5 laps to go. Jamie McMurray the leader. Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. And in the 2 transfer spots, Brad Keselowski goes to the bottom with Tony Stewart.
I just don't think Brad Keselowski needs to worry about Tony Stewart. Brad needs to worry about getting back in line. The car Brad Keselowski better worry about is that white number 36 car, because that would be the battle for the transfer spot with 4.5 laps to go. There comes Riggs up the back straightaway as we got a battle for the lead. The 2 teammates from Hendrick up the back straightaway.
Well, we
Car in
got
the grass.
this 16 car off the track.
Greg Biffle.
Greg Biffle.
And back on.
He picked up right where he left off last Saturday night.
David Reagan got crashed on that last caution. He got turned around by Kirk Shelmerdine. 4 to go this time.
Pretty comforting little situation right here with the 3 team. Well, not Tony Stewart. I can't really call him a teammate, but here comes Tony, and you can see that if he was a teammate, he'd probably stay right where he was.
But now Riggs is up to 5th. He's in a transfer spot.
Unfortunately, after trying to block Stewart, Keselowski got passed by Stewart, and both Riggs and Nemechek also got past him in a qualifying order. As the final lap started, fellow 500 rookie Marcos Ambrose drafted with Keselowski. Coming out of turn 4 that lap, Keselowski was close to Riggs and Nemechek, but could not get past them. Keselowski finished in 12th place, but this would not be enough for him and Finch to qualify for the 500. Marlin then drove the Phoenix Charger at Fontana in Las Vegas. At each race, he was the 13th fastest driver in qualifying of the entries outside the top 35 in owners' points, making him 5 positions too low to qualify. In all likelihood, had Marlin qualified for either event, he would have parked early based on the fact that the entry had no listed sponsorship. The 4th race, Atlanta, would be Bliss's first race for Phoenix. It would also be the first Cup Series race Finch's team qualified for in 2009, qualified for the race in 43rd, last place. While the Fox Sports broadcast listed Bliss as driving a Chevrolet, he was actually in a Dodge. In the first 12 laps, there would be 2 cautions, due to Reed Sorensen crashing on lap 2 and Bobby Labonte spinning on lap 12. During the latter caution period, Bliss did not make a pit stop as most other drivers did. He would briefly be in 3rd place behind fellow Star and Park drivers Nemechek with Nemco Motorsports and Dave Blaney with Prism Motorsports. The 3 would make their own pit stops the following lap. Soon afterwards, Bliss retired with 21 laps completed. The official reason given to take Bliss out of the race was an overheating problem. When Bliss retired, Sorensen was behind him. However, Sorensen eventually returned to the race and ended up finishing 33rd. Bliss would finish 43rd. After failing to qualify twice in 2009, Marlin made his first race of the season at Bristol, where he got the 43rd and last starting position. After 91 laps, citing steering issues, Marlin dropped out of the race and finished 40th. Bristol was the final race where the guaranteed qualifications were determined by the 2008 standings. For the remainder of the season, the standings entering the race would be used. Considering that Phoenix had qualified for just 2 races and failed to finish higher than 40th, they were not just outside the top 35 in owners' points, but outside of the top 43. This meant that if qualifying for a race was cancelled and every entry ranked ahead of them was entered, the Phoenix team would miss the race. Marlin then drove the number 09 entry at Martinsville in a Mikasuki-sponsored Charger. Despite being ranked 13th in practice, Marlin failed to qualify after qualifying was cancelled due to rain. The final starting position went to Todd Bodine in the number 64 Gunzelman Motorsports entry. Bliss had his second race with Finch at Texas and qualified once again. This time, he started in a respectable 27th in an unsponsored entry that had the Mikasuki livery on it. Early in the race, Bliss crashed and damaged the right side of the car. After going to the garage area, Bliss returned to the race, but would return to the garages multiple times. At lap 108, Phoenix had retired the car from the race. With 76 laps completed, Bliss finished 42nd. The team said clutch problems caused them to withdraw. It is possible that this was an issue that came from Bliss's crash and the team intended to run the full race, considering Bliss did return to the race after pulling off the track. At Phoenix, Marlin returned to Phoenix. The team qualified 39th, but a tire failure on lap 54 caused Marlin to crash slightly in turn 4. He did continue in the race, but eventually retired after completing 90 laps, resulting in another 40th place finish. Based on the fact that Marlin had Mikasuki sponsorship and, like Bliss at Texas, continued in the race after crashing, it seems that Finch intended to have the entry run the full race. After 8 races, the number 09 entry had failed to qualify for half of the races, had a best finish of 40th place, and retired from each race it started. Frankly, it did not seem likely that the entry would be winning a race. Talladega was the season's 9th race, and Keselowski would be doing his 2nd race for Phoenix. Since Daytona, Keselowski did 2 additional races for Hendrick, finishing 38th at Las Vegas and 23rd at Texas. As was the case at Daytona, Phoenix would be using a Hendrick engine in their Impala. Keselowski qualified 9th, but moved to the rear of the field after the engine in his car was changed. On lap 7, there was a 14-car crash towards the front of the field. Keselowski remained around where he qualified. He likely would have been collected in the crash. Keselowski gradually moved up and was eventually in 3rd position. After making a pit stop during a caution period for Michael Waltrip spinning, Keselowski was 2nd to Kyle Busch. However, Keselowski dropped back after the restart. On lap 81, Keselowski got back to 5th place. Soon afterwards, he was running 3rd, but made contact with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Keselowski dropped beneath the racing line and lost a lot of positions. With 55 laps remaining, Keselowski drafted with Elliott Sadler, who got the lead. However, Keselowski dropped back, again, and a crash nearly occurred behind him. Keselowski's car lacked speed when it was in the front of a line. With 9 laps remaining, there would be a major crash behind Keselowski. 5 laps later, the race restarted with Keselowski in 11th place. After being in a second pack, Keselowski drafted behind Casey Mears and then got behind Carl Edwards. Keselowski would start to bump draft with Edwards and they would move towards the front of the field.
Here they come. Look at the 99 and
Brad Keselowski.
And once again, there's that 2-car draft. And
they
look
have
at the
gotta
run.
go.
They get off turn 2.
That's 10 mile an hour faster than the cars in front of them.
They'll be coming to the white flag this time.
It's going to get interesting because Junior cannot sit there and run 2nd. This is his best shot at winning he's had in a while. He's not going to run 2nd in this race, I can tell you.
And is Edwards going to get to the front, or are they going to stall out
They got that
before
run.
they get to Junior?
They got that run, baby.
And what's interesting, that's a Hendrick car running 2nd. That's a Hendrick-related car leading the race. And that's a Hendrick-related car pushing Carl Edwards. White flag this time.
Yeah, Carl Edwards from the back all day to the lead with 1 to go.
3 Chevys and 1 Ford, and it doesn't matter now. Your friends are where you find them. And from hanging out back, Carl Edwards.
I'll tell you, I don't know if they can catch him. What we've seen today, 2 cars get that big a lit run on them. I don't know that the 39 and the 88 can catch them.
They're in the draft of Edwards and Keselowski.
It's all over you here, just you and him.
Carl Edwards restarted 8th.
If that 09 can stay hooked to the back of that 99, it's going to be hard to get him. It's going to be close right here at the line.
Can Keselowski try to win it?
I don't know. I don't think he can step out until he waits till the last second and picks up.
He goes to the outside as Edwards goes.
Oh, no.
He turns him.
No.
Oh, and that destroyed the front end of Newman's car.
No.
Edwards will not make it to the flag.
Oh,
Brad Keselowski won this race.
unbelievable.
Carl Edwards' car destroyed, and Junior's protege, Keselowski, the winner, and Carl Edwards is moving around and ready to climb out.
Every driver dreams of his first Sprint Cup win, but when that win comes at a venue as significant as Talladega, it is something special. Brad Keselowski, as you pulled into victory lane, I saw your hands were shaking. Can you believe you just won a Sprint Cup race, and you did so at the biggest track of all?
Wow, pinch me, I don't know, am I awake?
I'm gonna pinch you.
How about this team? God, how about that? All them fans out there, man, thanks for coming. This is the best show on earth. I gotta apologize to Carl for wrecking him, but man, the rule is you can't go below the yellow line, and he blocked, and I wasn't going below it. So I don't want to wreck a guy, but you're forced in that situation. So, but there's nothing else I could do. We had a lot of fun tonight. Man, it was that fun. I hope the fans did too, because this is NASCAR racing and this is cool.
Can you take us through that last lap and the moment you knew you just won a race as you crossed that start-finish line?
Well, I kind of felt bad because I was watching Carl in my mirror wreck hard, and I hope he's okay. I feel bad about that, but man, that's the rule. He knows the rule as well as anyone else, and he put himself in that spot, and I don't want to wreck a guy, but he put himself there, so hope he's okay, and sorry for that, but what a great Chevrolet. How about that Chevy? Man, does this thing have some smoke. Man, I can't believe it. I appreciate it.
His best finish coming into this race in the Sprint Cup Series, 19th. He is now a Sprint Cup winner.
After having debuted in the Cup Series in 1990, Finch and his Phoenix team got their first win. Keselowski only led the final lap, which ended up being his first lap led in the series. The win gave Phoenix an important thing. If any remaining 2009 race had its qualifying get cancelled, the number 09 entry, as a winner during the season, got the priority qualification for the non-top 35 entries. This meant that if there was not a more recent winning entry and or former champion in an entry not in the top 35 in owners points, Phoenix's entry would be the highest starting in the group. Phoenix's success carried over to qualifying at Richmond. There, with Bliss driving, they qualified in 6th place.
Now, Brad Keselowski is not racing here this evening. James Finch's racing team is, however. Instead of a Chevrolet, they have a Dodge for the short tracks, and Mike Bliss, who led a good part of last night's race for this same race team, is aboard.
And he qualified 6th. I mean, that's a great qualifying run for this team. They haven't been qualifying that well. So does that momentum mean anything? You dadgum right it does.
I tell you what, they had a car to beat last night in the Nationwide Series race with Mike Bliss driving it to one car and broke the track bar in the back of the car.
The first 6 laps of the race were done under caution, due to the track being wet from rain in areas. On the 7th lap, the first racing lap, Bliss battled with Mark Martin for 6th. On lap 10, the race had its second caution period when Blaney crashed. When the race restarted 4 laps later, Bliss was in 7th place. Towards the end of lap 18, Ryan Newman was close to him and then passed him early in the following lap. Bliss was now running 10th, with Clint Boyer close behind him. On lap 202, Bliss, who was a lap down by this point, had a brake issue, but did eventually return to the race. Bliss finished 32 laps down in 37th place, making him the lowest driver to finish. For the Southern 500 at Darlington, Marlin drove the number 09 car. Marlin had won twice at Darlington, in 1995 and 2002, the latter of which was his most recent win, but he did not attempt to get a third win at the track. He started in 43rd and last place. On lap 4, Marlin barely avoided Scott Speed crashing. Phoenix had their entry exit the race with 38 of 367 laps completed, with the claim being that there was a transmission issue, getting Marlin a 42nd place finish. This appeared to be Phoenix's first start in park since Bristol, 5 races earlier. Keselowski's Talladega win qualified him for the All-Star race. He would drive in it for Phoenix. Keselowski qualified 10th of the 18 drivers who automatically qualified for the event. 3 drivers from the All-Star Open would also qualify for the main event. Keselowski completed all 100 laps of the race, but struggled to be competitive and finished 17th, the last of the running drivers. As stated earlier, Bliss was Phoenix's driver in the Sportsman Series. At Charlotte for that series, Bliss got past Brendan Gaughan for the lead with 34 laps remaining. 2 laps later, the race went under caution due to rain and would get stopped after 2 additional laps. The race was declared official with leader Bliss as the winner. For the following Cup Series Charlotte race, the World 600, Bliss started in 7th place but moved his car to the rear of the field. He ended up being the race's only retirement, as he stopped racing after 42 laps with a claimed vibration issue. Bliss was also the driver at the next race, Dover. In an unsponsored Charger, he qualified 37th and went 54 laps into the race before withdrawing. Finch stated there were electrical issues with the car. At Pocono, Marlin was back as the number 09 car's driver. Due to rain canceling qualifying, the starting lineup was determined by owners' points. The Phoenix entry got 36th place. Marlin dropped out of the race with 56 laps completed, causing him to finish 40th. This time Phoenix said there was a fuel pump issue. Marlin did the next race, Michigan, too. He qualified 42nd and retired with 23 laps completed with claimed electrical issues. Excluding the exhibition All-Star race, Michigan was Phoenix's 5th consecutive retirement that was likely starting and parking. For the Cup Series' first road course race of 2009, Sonoma, Finch would have a new driver in his number 09 car, that being 2001 24 Hours of Daytona winner Ron Fellows. He had had a long career in road racing and had been a factory driver for Chevrolet since 1998. Fellows had competed in the Cup Series since 1995 and started 19 races. Additionally, Fellows had won 4 Sportsman Series races and 2 Truck Series races, all of which were on road courses. At the 1997 Sportsman Series race at Watkins Glen, Fellows drove for Phoenix and finished 25th, after starting third and having multiple transmission issues. 12 years later, Fellows drove Finch's Impala at Sonoma and qualified 29th. Gradually, he moved up in the field. By lap 81 of 110, Fellows was in the top 10 and increased his position when Scott Speed dropped back after making contact with Joey Logano. Fellows remained in the top 10 through at least lap 88. With 10 laps remaining, Fellows was in 12th place when Earnhardt and David Reagan each spun. To avoid them, Fellows went off course. Gradually, Fellows dropped back after this incident and finished 27th, although it was Phoenix's first lead lap finish since their Talladega win. Keselowski started his first points race with Phoenix since his winning race when he did New Hampshire for them. As was the case at Pocono, rain-canceling qualifying resulted in Phoenix getting the 36th starting position. On lap 108, Keselowski got lapped by quasi-Hendrick teammate Jimmy Johnson. 67 laps later, following a restart, a large crash occurred after Truex lost control following him making contact with AJ Allmendinger. Keselowski successfully navigated his way around the wreckage. On lap 234 of 301, what was likely to be the final pit stop sequence started when 5th place Busch pitted. However, it was known that rain was approaching the track and it was possible that this would end the race early. Some drivers tried to gain track position by delaying their pit stop. Keselowski's fellow rookie Joey Logano moved into the lead. As a result, Keselowski himself got into 6th. The race went under caution for rain on lap 268 and was stopped and declared official 5 laps later, with Keselowski getting a 6th place finish. Keselowski was again the driver for Finch when the Cup Series returned to Daytona for the Firecracker 400. With qualifying getting rained out, they started 36th. For most of the first half, Keselowski remained towards the rear of the field. On lap 77, there was a multi-car crash. This time, as Brian Vickers and Ryan Newman came down the track in wrecked vehicles, Keselowski got collected, but he did continue. However, he seemed to maintain a similar pace to before the crash and finished 18th. This was the number 09 entry's 3rd consecutive lead lap finish, though. Bliss did his first race for Finch since Dover, more than a month prior, at Chicagoland. Together, they started 26th and permanently went off the track after 56 of 267 laps were completed. For the 3rd time, the stated reason for the car being retired was an electrical issue. At the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis, Marlin attempted his first race since Michigan, itself more than a month prior, but failed to qualify. When the Cup Series returned to Pocono, Marlin got the 36th starting position when qualifying got cancelled. He completed 36 of the race's 200 laps when the entry was taken off the track due to a supposed transmission issue. For Watkins Glen, the 2nd and final road course race of the season, Fellows came back for his 2nd and final race of 2009 with Phoenix. He qualified in 39th place in the Impala and had an onboard camera for ESPN's broadcast. On lap 28 of 90, Fellows' car had a starter issue and it was moved to the garage area. Eventually, Fellows returned to the race and finished 6 laps down in 29th place. This was the first time the number 09 entry was running at the finish since Keselowski did that at Daytona more than a month prior. At Michigan, Bliss qualified in 29th place. On lap 8, the race was briefly stopped due to rain. The race restarted under caution. Most drivers made pit stops during this time. Bliss remained on the track and moved into 13th place. Citing an electrical issue, Bliss and Phoenix retired with 62 laps completed and a 38th place result. Car number 09 had its 5th driver of 2009 when Eric Almirola drove a Dodge for Finch at Bristol. Almirola had started the season with Earnhardt Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. However, after getting just 2 top 30 finishes out of the first 7 races, being 37th in the championship at that point and having sponsorship issues, Almirola was released. Since then, Almirola had raced part-time with Billy Ballew Motorsports in the Truck Series and finished in the top 10 in 4 of the 6 races he started. To that point, unfortunately, Almirola failed to qualify for what would have been his Cup Series debut for Finch. Bliss was back in the number 09 entry at Atlanta. There, they qualified in 38th, but parked after 38 laps and finished 41st. For the 5th and final time of 2009, The Phoenix car retired with a claimed electrical issue. The second Richmond race was very similar to the first one for Phoenix. With Keselowski driving, he qualified 9th. The team's first top 10 start since Bliss at Charlotte. Once again, the Finch vehicle was having a mechanical issue. Keselowski's car was smoking before the engine failed with 376 of 400 laps completed. This resulted in Keselowski finishing 38th. After failing to qualify at Bristol, Almirola successfully qualified Finch's Charger in 39th at New Hampshire. He had a steady race and finished 3 laps down in 29th position.
The next race, Dover, Bliss started in 36th place and was lapped by Johnson by the time of a competition caution on lap 26.
As most drivers made pit stops, Bliss remained on the track and got back on the lead lap. However, after 54 laps, he dropped out of the race with a stated vibration. Bliss was in the Phoenix entry for Kansas. He got his third top 20 start by qualifying in 19th place. However, the team decided to withdraw Bliss due to supposed overheating problems after 26 laps, causing them to finish 41st. Phoenix would also say that Bliss had an engine issue, this time an outright failure, at Fontana, where he finished 43rd with just 11 laps completed after starting 23rd. At Charlotte, Marlin entered his first race since Pocono in August, more than 2 months earlier. However, Marlin instead had his 5th failure to qualify for the 2009 season. Marlin also drove for Phoenix at the following event, Martinsville. This time he qualified for the race and would start 38th. On lap 40, leader Jeff Gordon came up behind Marlin and eventually lapped him just after lap 42 started. 2 laps later, Waltrip spun next to Marlin and the race had a caution period. Marlin was the highest ranking driver not on the lead lap and got a free pass to get back onto it. On lap 77, Marlin was lapped again. This time, Johnson got past him. 30 laps later, the right front tire on Marlin's car failed. Coming out of turn 2 on lap 275 of 400, Casey Kane lost control under John Andretti, causing Andretti to spin across the track. Marlin narrowly avoided Andretti's car.
On lap 301, Marlin, who was by this point 2 laps down, got another free pass to get a lap back after King crashed again, and there was another caution time.
Eventually, Marlin retired with 355 laps completed and a 35th place result. Martinsville was Marlin's final race of the season and of his Cup Series career. He had started competing in the series when he was 18 years old in 1976 and won 10 races. For Marlin's final season, he entered 12 races, failed to qualify for 5 of them, and retired from all the races he started. Of the races Marlin started, I think Phoenix and Martinsville were the only ones that Marlin and Phoenix intended to run the full distance.
25-year-old Keselowski succeeded 52-year-old Marlin for the next race, Talladega. Keselowski started 36th due to qualifying being cancelled. On lap 43, Keselowski passed Earnhardt for 5th place. 6 laps later, Keselowski made his first pit stop. Next lap, with Keselowski in 9th position, Kurt Busch spun and the race went under caution. When the race restarted on lap 56, Keselowski had moved up to 2nd after various drivers ahead of him made pit stops during the caution period. Although Keselowski initially led the outside line, he soon dropped back. On lap 126, Keselowski drafted with David Stremme in the middle lane. By the end of the following lap, they were in 2nd and 3rd place, respectively. On lap 135, Keselowski had Earnhardt drafting behind him and they began to challenge Stremme for the lead. After Stremme got shuffled out of the top line, which lost momentum afterwards, Keselowski got the lead on lap 136. On lap 138, there was a caution due to Denny Hamlin having an engine failure. After making a pit stop, Keselowski and Phoenix led when the lap 143 restart occurred. Gordon then got past Keselowski, who moved into 2nd. However, after Gordon moved down the track, Keselowski dropped back and nearly crashed into David Rudiman, going down the back straightaway with 23 laps remaining. Keselowski dropped back further in the field. With 14 laps to go, Stremme and Keselowski led the top line and got the lead the following lap. With 9 laps to go, Jamie McMurray got the lead, but Stremme and Keselowski got back the lead before the end of the lap. The next lap, McMurray, Matt Kenseth, and Gordon got past Stremme and Keselowski. The race was stopped after a multi-car crash occurred that included Ryan Newman flipping violently. While the race was still under caution for the crash, Keselowski made a final pit stop. With 2 laps to go, Keselowski and Busch attempted to draft together to get to the front of the field. However, just before the last lap started, Busch lost control and a major crash occurred. Under caution, Keselowski finished 8th. This was Keselowski's final race for Phoenix. For the remaining 3 races of the season, he replaced Stremme at Team Penske. At Texas, Bliss drove Finch's Dodge, but failed to qualify for what likely would have been a SMIFF race for the team. For the final 2 races of the season, Phoenix had 2 new drivers for their Cup Series program. 2007 500 pole sitter David Gilliland would drive for Phoenix at Phoenix. Gilliland had driven for TRG Motorsports for most of 2009. He began to drive for TRG at Fontana, the second race, after Mike Wallace failed to qualify at Daytona. Gilliland got TRG's number 71 entry into the top 35 in owners' points after the 5th race, Bristol, which guaranteed them a qualification for races, as long as they remained in the top 35. Unfortunately, they did drop from this ranking and, after crashing at Talladega in April, began to start and park at some races. Gilliland had 11 non-crash retirements with TRG. He also drove for Wood Brothers Racing at Atlanta and twice each for Robbie Gorin Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. He got a best finish of 14th at Las Vegas with TRG. At the Phoenix race, Gilliland qualified 29th in the Finch Impala. On a restart on lap 120, Kyle Busch slowed on the inside line, causing drivers behind him to also slow and some drivers to crash. Gilliland was one of the drivers in the crash. He finished 4 laps down in 30th place. For the Homestead season finale, Stremme drove for Phoenix in a Chevrolet. As stated earlier, Keselowski replaced him at Penske. In the first 33 races of the season, Stremme had a best finish of 13th place twice. Unfortunately, the 2009 season ended poorly for Stremme and Finch. They failed to qualify and were the slowest of the entries that missed the race. For the 2009 Cup Series season, Phoenix's number 09 entry had 7 drivers, 1 win, 3 top 10 finishes, 4 top 10 starts, topped by Bliss's 6th at Richmond, 9 finishes, 9 failures to qualify, and 18 retirements, of which at least 14 appeared to be cases of the team starting and parking. The number 09 entry finished 38th in the final owners' points standings. This would mean that Finch's team did not have a guaranteed qualification for at least the first 5 races of 2010. In the Sportsman Series for 2009, Bliss finished in the top 10 in 10 of the first 21 races, including his aforementioned win at Charlotte. Following Iowa, the 21st race, Bliss was released from the team. 8 drivers drove the Finch entry after this. However, they only had 4 top 10 finishes in the remaining 14 races. One of the 8 drivers was Bliss, who returned to the team for the Homestead season finale, where he finished 16th. Bliss drove for 4 other teams between his 2 stints with Finch in 2009. He did not miss a race and finished 5th in the championship. Prior to the 2010 NASCAR seasons, Finch lost the Mikasuki sponsorship. The Phoenix team was full-time in the Cup Series in 2010. They intended to have Almirola drive full-time. However, he left the team after 7 races, all of which either had Almirola fail to qualify or be a SMIFF driver, to concentrate on running for the Truck Series Championship with Baloo. The team failed to qualify for 8 races and retired from 19 other events. The best result they had was 10th at Talladega with Bliss. Phoenix continued to compete full-time in 2011 and 2012, but stopped starting and parking. For the latter season, 2004 champion Kurt Busch, who had been fired from Penske after the 2011 season due to ranting at ESPN reporter Jerry Punch, drove for them in 29 of 36 races. This included him finishing 3rd at Sonoma. Phoenix had 9 Cup Series drivers in 2013. The team finished in the top 26 times, including Regan Smith finishing in the top 10 twice. Unfortunately, they had sponsorship issues and Finch sold his team to Harry Scott Jr., co-owner of Turner Scott Motorsports. Scott would rename the team to H. Scott Motorsports. Finch's final race as the owner of the Phoenix team was at Atlanta, where Bliss finished in 33rd place, 6 laps down. While expanding their Cup Series operation, Phoenix continued to compete in the Sportsman Series through 2013. Busch won at Daytona in 2012 and gave Finch his most recent win in a national NASCAR series as of November 2024. In 2020, Finch announced he was restarting the Phoenix team in conjunction with Waters Motorsports and Baloo. They intended to compete in the NASCAR Truck Series race at Homestead with Eric Jones driving. However, due to the coronavirus pandemic causing NASCAR to reschedule various events, the race they decided to compete at was instead Charlotte. Since there was no qualifying at most races during the pandemic, the entry failed to qualify due to a lack of owners' points. In 2022, Finch's Phoenix team returned to ARCA with Jake Finch, James's son, driving. They also competed in the ARCA Racing Series West and the ARCA Racing Series East. The younger Finch's best finish in those series for the Phoenix team was 4th at Bristol for the main ARCA division in 2023.